Hi everyone, hope you're all very well. It's Jess here from Field Place Pottery. I'm back in the studio this week. We've got a couple of spaces come up on the Wednesday morning. If anybody wants to join us, please get in contact. All information is on my website, so you can go over to there and book on the course as well. So we've got 4 more weeks left of this term, so if you want to join in, we'd love to have you. So the technique I'm going to go through today is something I've seen online, so it'll be interesting to see how this works. Basically all I've done is I've taken one of my biscuitware pieces like so, and I've then covered it with little blobs of underglaze, and then what I'm going to do from there is to put a bit of wax onto the surface. So it will take a bit of time to sort of do this, so I will sort of dip in and dip out of what I'm actually sort of doing, but I'm just going to literally just start to paint on some wax. So the wax I've got is basically just there. Can you just see that? Perfect. So I'm literally just going to go over the top, and I'm actually just going to paint in a sort of random pattern. So you can do whatever you like. So you could do this as dots, or you could do this as flowers, or lines, or anything along those lines. But I'm just going to basically do sort of like a wax to resist. I want to see how this sort of turns out really. It was a really interesting workshop I watched very briefly from somebody else, and I thought, well, that looks quite good, so I'm actually going to try that out myself just to sort of have a look. So I'm going to go over and make these lines a little bit sort of thicker as well. So I've got, can you just see it there? Yep. So I'm just going to go ahead and just carry on and working my way through. So what should happen ideally is wherever I've put the wax resist, and I suppose you could do this with latex as well actually, I'm going to be left with that colour underneath, and then I'm going to wipe back once the wax is all nice and dry. So I'm doing a couple of different patterns on this, just again, so I can just test the process really more than anything else. I think it's really important just to have a bit of a play around. It's not going to be like a final piece, but it's quite an interesting process. Can you just sort of see I'm just sort of just placing on little lines on there at the moment. And I'll come across here. I quite like the pattern of just the underglaze on there actually, if I'm honest. So on this side you can just see the wax just starting to set up, because when it goes on it's white. And you can actually add a pigment to your wax as well, a bit of ink or something, so you can actually see it better. I haven't done that with my wax, but you can do. And then where I can see it's just starting to set up, you can just sort of see, like, yeah, you can just sort of see it just there, goes a slight glint. I'm going to go over a couple of extra little areas as well, because I want to play around with possibilities more than anything else. And if I feel like it needs to be slightly thicker, I'll go over the top of some of the marks that I've made as well. Right, so I've waxed all the way around that with a different pattern, and then once that's dry, I'm literally going to just take a sponge over the top and wipe back. And then what should happen, or hopefully happen, is that I will end up with the patterns that I've made in there basically in colour, and then the background would be white again. That's the plan anyway. So we're going to see if that actually happens, whether that works. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just let this dry out naturally, and then I'll take you through the second part. Hi there, hope you're all very well. Back to the cup that I've been working on. So this basically has been the throwing piece that I've biscuit fired, and then I've put underglazes all over the surface, and then I've just done a wax relief basically over the top of that, and I'm going to wipe back and see what happens. So this could be great or it could be awful, who knows. So I'm just going to start to wipe back, and what I should be left with is basically the raw clay, and then the colours coming through underneath the wax that I've painted on the surface. And actually that is coming through. Can you see that? That's quite cool actually. So I'm just going to carry on wiping back and see what we've got. So I've done quite a few different textures. I saw this and I thought that looks really cool. I wanted to have a go, just to see what it would be like really on a piece of work, and actually how far I might be able to take this when it comes to doing processes and techniques for my students, as well as potentially doing stuff on my own work as well. That's quite cool actually. So you can see where I've painted on the wax and what's been left behind, and that is from all those different colours that I've put on there, and then I've painted the wax over the top. Now if I want to glaze over the top of this, obviously it's going to resist the glaze, so what I'm mostly going to sort of do first is actually put it back in for another biscuit firing, so it then leaves all those textures onto the surface. Because if I heat this up, I'm not going to get rid of the wax, it's just going to go all over it, so I need to actually burn it away. And the only real way that I'm going to be able to do that is by putting it back into the kiln for a biscuit firing again. And then I'll be left with the colours that are actually on the surface, and they'll be baked onto the surface as well. So then I could potentially work back into it as well. And then literally put a clear glaze over the top, and I'll be left with all those marks on the surface. So I'm going to do that and see what happens. And then once I've done all of that, I'll let you know what it looks like really. But at the moment, I have to admit, I quite like that. I think that's quite an interesting process, a lovely way of getting a bit of colour onto your pieces. But basically, if I was to put a clear glaze over the top of this now, what will happen is all my coloured bits will be dry, and then the background will be shiny, which could be quite nice as well. So there's lots of different things that potentially you could sort of do with this. I could take a colour glaze over this rather than being a clear glaze, and then the background parts would be coloured with then dry bits coming through. So again, it's a really interesting process, and I just saw this myself on Instagram, I think it was, and I thought that was a really interesting way of getting colour onto a very simple cream piece, but also getting a bit of texture in there as well. Now if you know anything about my work, I love a bit of texture, so actually this will suit me quite nicely. And what I quite like is that you get the different sort of dark and the oranges and the greens that come through as well. I rather like this part here, that works really well, and also the lines, actually I really like all of it. So yeah, so that's the technique. So do follow along with me, because I'm sort of going to be trying out some new processes and new techniques. I'm also considering doing a membership at the moment as well, where I will be doing little sessions and classes online. So if you're interested in doing anything along those lines, do just sort of say yes in the comments, because actually it'd be quite interesting to sort of see where that will potentially sort of take different classes, really, more than anything else. So it's only in the pipelines. It's nothing I'm going forward very quickly with, but it's out there. It's a possibility. So yeah, do keep following me. Thank you for everybody who supports me, and I will see you very soon. All right, take care.